Hey guys, welcome back to Cold Antler Farm, and today we're getting back to our talk about chicks. About a week ago, I posted a video talking about chickens, where to get them, and the introduction to this whole series. Well, today I want to start out with an update on our chick. Look at those pin feathers and tail feathers. These weren't here last week. The bird's really looking beautiful. It's a little windy out here, so he's going to go right back into his brooder. But I wanted you to see the healthy progression of a chick that's growing. Now, this Buff Orpington is pretty big for a 2-week-old chick. She's in really good shape. And notice how clear the eyes are. There's no signs of any sort of excrement or crust. The same with the nose. The tip of the nose is growing normally. It's a slight curve. Some birds will get such a curve it looks like a hook or like the end of a letter S. That's dangerous. It can actually stop your chick from being able to eat. It's like trying to pick up grain with a claw for a hand. So those, you actually need to take a pair of tiny little nail clippers and make sure that these beaks aren't curving too much. The bird's feet are super healthy. Some birds get something called splayed foot, where basically, this is more common in meat birds than on laying hens, but basically they aren't able to walk anymore because their feet and their legs kind of end up falling back behind them. It's kind of unfortunate. Most people cull those birds. Some people raise them because they're meat birds and they'll only be around 8 to 10 weeks anyway, but for a laying hen, splay foot isn't going to make it. So we've got healthy eyes, good beak, healthy ears, healthy feet, feathers coming in wonderfully, and this is a healthy progression of a Buff Orpington hen. Now we're going to talk about how I got there and how to set up your brooders at home. You guys know what? It's so cold and windy outside that the literal laptop is shaking, because the wind is blowing it. So what I'm going to do is finish up chores, do a fire inside, get a fire going, and we'll finish the discussion indoors by the fire. So I will join you shortly. Enjoy this quick intermission. So if you're brooding chicks, here's what you need to know. You are recreating the brooding cycles of the hen. You are literally creating an artificial environment that will be just like the warm, safe, cozy zone underneath mama's feathers. So what you need to create is a windproof, warm, as in 90 degrees warm, dry, clean environment where those animals know they can safely be taken to food and water. Chicks aren't like other animals that are born knowing to drink and eat. They need to be taught. So when you get your chicks home from the post office or from the feed store, especially from the post office, those birds were taken from the incubator and put into a package and sent to you. They've never eaten food by themselves or drank anything by themselves. So it's up to you to take those beautiful baby chicks, look them over, check their eyes, check their noses, make sure they're healthy, and then physically dip them, but hold them in your hand and dip them into their water font, and then set them down next to it so that they can throw their heads up in the air and do that adorable little so they know that they can drink. And then they generally find the food on their own. I don't really show chicks how to eat. That's crazy. But I do dip their beaks in water. And you should too if you're getting them out of the mail. So you want your brooder to be 90 degrees. And the option to have spots that are cooler or warmer. And the best way to do that is to get one of those overhanging brooder lights. You've seen them before. They're the metal globe lights you see at the feed store, hardware store, with a cage over it. You know, usually there's a cross wire in front of it to keep it from the light bulb itself from touching the ground if it happens to fall into the shavings. This is important for fire safety. Or you can buy very fancy brooder lights that come from places like Premier One. Has a $40 heat light that is pretty much totally safe to have on at all times. Most of us just use the clamp lights with the heaters, the heating lamps. They're like 250-watt bulbs, and those work fantastic. I have one set up right now. It's a red heat lamp. They usually come in red or white light. It doesn't affect the heat. I think it's just a preference for color. Some folks like the red because it basically is a sign that this is a heat lamp and that this is hotter than usual and you should be more aware of it. I don't think the chicks really care. But the heat lamp creates this environment where you want it to be around 90 degrees. Now, if your brooder lamp is too low in your brooder, it's going to cook those chickens, and you will see them press their bodies against the farthest sides of your little brooding box to get away from the heat. That's dangerous. Lift that light up. The distance from the pine shavings or newspaper on the bottom of your brooder to the light is what controls the heat. So that's why we use the clamp lights or the lights that can hang. Generally, they're safer, but also they let you move the light up and down. So you can be very careful and very, specific about temperature. You always want to start off day-old chicks at around 90 degrees. After their first week or two, you lift that light up and get it around 85 degrees. Third week, it can be 75, 80 degrees. Fourth week, they may already have all their feathers and be ready to be in a wind-free environment outside. But for those first couple of days, you want a wind-proof, critter-proof, toddler-proof, Sparky the dog-proof, Sally the cat-proof brooding box, and that means sometimes putting a window screen or some hardware cloth over top of it and having those feed and water fonts inside. So when it comes to feeding and watering your chicks inside the brooder, it is worth it spending a couple extra bucks and buying the chick water and feeders you see at the hardware store or in the catalogs. They look almost like discs that you screw either special plastic or just your general mason jars, like a regular smallmouth mason jar. Well, they come in wide mouth or regular. So a regular mason jar around a quart or a pint gets screwed on. And these are gravity-fed containers that have a very small circular area, and that's important because that circular area makes it so that the birds have to go around to eat and not pile on top of each other or get into the water itself. It stops basically your chicks from getting wet. If you go to work one morning and everything's perfect and the chicks have, you just put in clean shavings and they have fresh food and water and you're ready to go away. Well, let's say there's a power outage or the light's faulty and it breaks. If your light breaks and you have these birds with just tiny little pans of water and those birds get wet and their heat lamp goes off, you're going to have a bunch of dead chicks when you get home 8 hours later. They're not made to get wet and cold. So it's $2 or $3 for one of those special round red feeder bottoms. They come in plastic. They come in metal. Metal will last you longer if you take care of it. They're worth investing in. Gibson's doing so much better. Yeah? So where do you put this brooder? Well, you put it somewhere it won't get disturbed, and that's important. Not so much because the birds can't handle being bothered by other living things, but disturbance could mean things like that heat lamp getting unplugged or knocked down. My biggest concern with chicks in the house was always those heat lamps. They're super hot, and they're a blessing to those of us raising chicks without a mother hen on top of them. But there are countless horror stories of houses or barns burning because those super hot heat lamps are not ever secure right. So my suggestion is if you get the basic clamp heat lamp like this one, if you get that heat lamp, clamp it. Put a zip tie or two around the clamp and what you have it clamped to so that even if the clamp fails, it's still held up. And then I always hang the wire from something up above. So there's the clamp clamped onto something, the light itself attached physically to what it's clamped to, and the wire holding the light up is also held so that if every one of those things would have to go wrong for the light to fall into that beautiful kindling of pine shavings and make chicken dinner early and or burn down your garage and or your home. Now this is incredibly rare, but you are literally playing with fire. So It's a great reason to buy one of those super safe lights, which cost $40, but $40 is cheap for peace of mind. Or to put your brooders somewhere away from your home, like in your barn or your like a garage not attached to your house or a garden shed. That's fine. But once you're away from your home, there's usually more risk of predators. So you're going to need a brooder that is safe from predators. And just because you built a plywood box with a lid doesn't mean it's predator safe. I've had gorgeous plywood brooders made to hold 50 chicks get gnawed through in one night by rats in the barn and suck out, or weasel or some beast come through and drag down 30 chicks and take them into little hell holes in the ground. So if you're going to use wooden brooders outside in a barn, even if you've never seen a rat or never seen any creature that may or may not eat chicks, line those wooden brooders with inexpensive hardware cloth, staple it down with a staple, and make it so that any critter that's chewing through that wood, by the first time you clean out that brooder, you'll see if there's holes in the bottom, and you'll see if those critters aren't able to get through that steel cloth. So it's a very cheap investment and only a couple more minutes of cutting wire and stapling it down to ensure the health of these birds, which you're putting time into, money into, feed into, and hoping to harvest to the age that will lay you eggs or create meat for your family. So take care of them. Okay, guys, sorry we had to come inside. Sorry there wasn't more adorable chick pictures, but this is more of a talk to get you ready for raising chicks in the world. I hope this was helpful for first-time chicken owners. If it was helpful, tell your friends and click that subscribe button, that one down there, the red one. It matters. Thanks.